Oh yeah, this is happening. Inexplicably, this one video that I did back in 2018 got a ridiculous amount of views relative to the other videos on the channel. So I decided to do an in-depth analysis on just the last game from that set, because I had heard of this specific game before I even made the video. Like, this is a very recognizable game between Oxydol and Azil. So, right off the bat, we see a ridiculously large amount of really close movement. Both players are just in each other's face, and neither of them are really committing to a long melee that's going to really catch the other one, because they know that the other one's probably going to block it on reaction. This is Japan, so they're probably playing on delay 0 without Soku roll. Effectively, Soku roll, what it does is it allows players to play over larger connections, because normally this game is meant for Japan, and it's meant to play from Japan to Japan, so not a huge connection. So the net code is kind of garbage by itself if you try to do even a little bit of distance. So you are allowed for lots more close reactions if you can play on a lower delay. Here we actually see a really nice pressure string. So Sakuya Oxydol, he actually grazes through all of Azil's autopilot, all of the flowcharty bullets out of pressure. However, Azil's J44, J5As, it's so well timed and well executed that it just works anyway. That was probably not going to work, but that would have been a really cool conversion if the 6-6B landed. This is quite interesting. Oxydol has anticipated that Azil is not going to fall for the air unblockable. However, he's still going to air tech. So Azil is hovering just out of 3A range, which is Sakuya's air unblockable. And it makes for such a little interesting exchange, because they're both just kind of flying above each other horizontally, because both of them are staying just outside of the other's threaten range. And Azil comes in for the J5A into more pressure. A lot of more posturing in neutral, and it ultimately leads to Azil getting a conversion. His conversions are always perfect. He knows exactly what combo to do at which time. In this case, he probably could have eked out a little bit more damage, but probably not, honestly. That spacing is a little bit awkward. I don't think either 6C would have landed or 236B, so just going right into the 2 card was probably his best bet there. Right now it is Sun Shower, which means that any wrong block will lead to a crush. Azil's following of Oxydol's movement there, because he knows he has that bullet cover, is just spectacular, and he J5As at the exact perfect time. That combo that he just did, that Azil just did, it only works versus Reimu, Sakuya, and Marissa. It's the 2B, 2C link into the J2A. It's such a cool combo. It's pretty easy, but the knowledge check of knowing that that's the combo that works the best in that matchup to get a little bit more damage to eke out that round ending there was phenomenal. We're in River Mist, which is why we did not see Oxydol go out with the 2-card Killing Doll. Normally, if you get a knockdown like that as Sakuya, you would go into that kind of pressure and Okizeme, but because River Mist is going to make pressure not really stick as much, it was not a good option. This is the second time that we've seen the last hit of Sakuya's default 623 hit. I believe that's the B version that he's using here, because that's the one that land cancels the best, so Azil is probably trying to get as close as possible to maybe try and punish it, or at least pressure or threaten Oxydol in some manner, but he's getting hit by the last hit, because it's really deceptive. It lasts a while. Again, the 6-6B there would have led to a nice Okizeme setup with Killing Doll. I know we've seen Oxydol do this many times on this channel, going from the 6-6B ender into Killing Doll. However, River Mist made that not really a good option. Azil expected a high jump out there because while the spacing isn't necessarily minus for Azil, I believe most times like a border escape would have escaped something like a 2A. So he went straight for the J5A. And the great thing about doing that is that it has Azil's J5A there had such little recovery that he's not even going to get punished for it. And now he's in a spot where he can use something like J2A. Or just fly down and go for a J5A because Oxydol feels threatened by the thought of a J2A, which will lead to a much more worthwhile pressure. And that kind of border escape is perfectly timed. I don't know if that's perfectly timed on Oxydol's part or badly timed on Azil's part or some mixture of the both, but it's really cool. And now we have a non-River Mist weather with a knockdown, which means one thing. Not Killing Doll. It's a C version of 623C. If Azil had tried to graze that, he would have gotten all of his orbs drained immediately. That was such a hard combo to land. The J2C into the J2A ender there, or sorry, the J6A ender, that is so difficult. Some of Sakuya's combos, especially the ones that end with J6A, it's so easy to just land cancel your J6A. If you expect that your opponent is going to try to escape from that, you can do what Oxydol does here, and instead go for a 2C 236B. And this led to a crush and a kill, because Azil was already one orb down. It's kind of a checkmate there, because you can just go for the dial A until the daggers start hitting. At that point, they're locked into block stun and they can't border escape because of the spell card, and those are just those knives are just constantly hitting. So you can be assured that the 2C 236B is going to land without any chance of your opponent doing anything. It is a checkmate situation. This is a very interesting use of Lunadial. So before we get into how he uses Lunadial here, what we have to think about is what led to wanting to use the spell card in the first place. This conversion that he did there, it wouldn't have actually worked into anything other than like a kind of a weak conversion into maybe like a 236 ender, which wouldn't have been great. It would have been a lot of orbs for not a lot of damage, and it would have led to not a great amount of Okizeme or pressure, unless he'd use Killing Doll after. Now let's see what he does with this. Setting up bullets for after. So instead of going for the combo, which most people would do, he goes for a pressure setup. He uses Lunadial as a reset into Okizeme. He sort of uses it as a little bit of a restand. I've never seen this card used in this way before. Something I've noticed about Okizeme with Sakuya is you always want to wait until you have the opportunity to snowball your spell card Okizeme. So notice how he's almost got 3 cards in his hand here. That'll give him enough to use Private Square. He wouldn't immediately use a Killing Doll if he only had 2 cards, because you won't really get to snowball into more stuff. Because ideally what you do with the Okizeme is it just leads to a whole string of crushes and damage, and it lets you get more meter, and that leads to more crushes and more damage. In this instance, Azil doesn't respect it at all, and it works out very well for him. He goes for the mash and the Graze move, which is 623B. Anybody would have expected the low there. This is just a total rock, paper, scissors game. Oxydol had any option available. He could have gone for 6-6A, he could have gone for 2A, he could have gone for 6A. There's so many options for mix-ups there, and you just have to pick whether you're blocking high or low. In this instance, he went for a 3A, which is kind of interesting, because he could have gone for like Far 5A or 6A or 6-6A. Effectively, Azil blocked correctly, and that's all that matters. Now again, we are in Sun Shower, so any wrong block means a crush, like here. So the 2A going into the crush, you can dash forward a little bit while somebody's crush. We saw that before in the previous round when Azil did that after a Sun Shower guard crush. This was a little bit weak. It was a little bit of a misplay. I have to wonder if this was planned, because Oxydol right now, he has 3 private squares in his hand, and Mountain Vapor is on the clock. I think he wants to reshuffle his hand here. Or not. He probably could have escaped there. I guess he didn't. I guess he wanted to keep it. Using coin here was pretty much the only option that Oxydol had. The 1-card passage to the underworld that Azil used here was plus. If you block it, you are plus, which means that Azil can continue his pressure after that with no retaliation, because the frame data supports this. Azil expected Oxydol to go for an escape there and opted for the J6A. It whiffed, and it will be punished. Not by much, because it's River Mist. And now we see Sphere Bloom. Sphere Bloom. This is a skill that does a whole bunch of spirit damage. Whole bunch of spirit damage on block. So the whole game of Sphere Bloom is to get the correct setup and to execute it properly. 6A, notice how it's already done 1 orb. That was another 3.5 orbs. Whole bunch of spirit damage. And the 4-card to finish it off. Help! Now, the reason why he didn't go for that combo that he did previously, it might have actually worked to end the round there, is... Actually, no, that would have been great because Typhoon would have been forced, I think. So, the spacing wasn't quite in... It wasn't good. The spacing wasn't good. Notice that little cheeky swap here in Okizeme that was just expertly defended by Oxydol. Private square in neutral, it's a little bit interesting because it's more of a mind game than anything. Yes, technically Sakuya does have the objective advantage, but if you play it right, it's not that bad. It's not as bad as it seems. It's not like Sakuya is going to beat you no matter what. As we see here, both players are kind of expecting the other one to be mashing. So Azil is blocking and Oxydol is blocking because he knows that Azil has the threaten. He has the J5A, he has the threat. And what this leads to is Sakuya dropping down faster than Azil. Azil is in a perfect space for a J5A. And Oxydol goes for the 3A. And these trade because the frame data supports this. And this is another time that the last hit of the 623 catches Azil.